Hello again, curious acolytes of the galaxy, and welcome back to the archives. In the Empire's starting reign, there were many things from the Clone Wars era that needed to be taken care of, loose ends that needed to be tied. Palpatine was a very busy man following Order 66, and he had to move incredibly quickly in order to secure total control as quickly as possible. This included primarily silencing all remaining Separatist cells, shutting down the droid factory, and of course, terminating the clone program. Just like how he was in lightsaber combat, Sidious was moving at blinding speeds to achieve each of his goals so that he could make ready for the construction of his primary project, the Death Star. One might say that it was in these early stages that the Empire committed the most atrocities in its mad rush to consolidate its power. However, there was one atrocity done by Sidious that is regularly looked over, and one that had massive implications. We come to realize this in Season 2, Episode 17 of Star Wars Rebels, the total and complete annihilation of the entire Geonosian species. So, come along with us today, curious acolytes of the galaxy, as we explore what quite possibly could be the most depraved act that Sidious ever committed. While I'm sure there are very few people who would call themselves supporters of the barbaric Geonosians, certainly no one would ever condone genocide, but apparently Sidious did. So why exactly did he do this? The Geonosians, who were his allies during the Clone War. The Geonosians had proven that during the entirety of the war that they were at the very least a useful workforce. With their factories running 24/7 to make the battle droids for the Separatists, surely Sidious could have found some other uses for them, as well as their vast resources and their talents. So why did he toss this all away? Interestingly, he actually had been using them for a purpose other than the manufacturing of the battle droids. Following the ending of the Clone Wars, the Geonosians had been ordered to begin construction on the very beginnings of the Death Star. This would make sense, as you remember at the very end of Revenge of the Sith, we see Tarkin, Sidious, and Vader overlooking the skeletal frame of the Great Battle Station from the viewport of their Star Destroyer. It was Grand Moff Tarkin that was actually overseeing the Geonosians' construction of the Death Star parts in its very early years. However, the shift came when the project was moved elsewhere, with the Geonosians no longer building battle droids or the Death Star. They were therefore no longer useful, but that's no reason that Sidious would have wiped them out entirely. Besides the fact that the Empire can't be found having relations with a Separatist factory system, the Geonosians knew far too much, and it would be the Geonosians that would be the most likely to overthrow Darth Sidious. Of every single species that Sidious worked with over the Clone Wars, it was the Geonosians that knew far too much, and he had come to realize that he had trusted them far too much. Not only did this directly tie him to the Separatist movement as a whole, but it also tied him to the Death Star. We have to remember that Sidious was constructing the Death Star in secrecy for its first 20 years, away from the creeping eyes of the Senate, and this was crucial to his plans of one day overthrowing the Imperial Senate. The Geonosians knew about the Death Star and all of its secrets for a very long time, as Poggle the Lesser had been in the know about the plans by way of Count Dooku. And obviously, the Insectoids would have had some information on these plans so that they could construct the outer frame. At this point in time, Sidious was keeping the construction of a Death Star top secret. Only the highest ranking Imperials in the military knew of the project at all, along with the workers obviously. The Geonosians had now found themselves in a precarious position, that being a loose end. Grand Moff Tarkin, under the orders of Darth Sidious, then committed the horrendous act that the subject of this holocron is about: the complete and near total extinction of the Geonosian race. The Imperial Weapons Division used chemical warfare against the helpless species by dropping canisters of poisonous gas into the colonies. But it gets much worse. This poisonous gas not only killed all the Geonosians that were alive, but it also killed the eggs and sterilized the remaining individuals. The Geonosians' hive, which relied on the queen constantly giving birth to workers as any hive did, was now unable to function. Soon, the Geonosians would all die out, and their eggs would die, and none of them were able to reproduce whatsoever. This accomplished the near extinction of the entire race. We say near extinction because one survived with a singular hope. A single Geonosian named Click Clack survived, and not only that, but perfectly preserved one final queen egg. There was hope yet for the Geonosian race. Unfortunately, we have to squash this hope, as Click Clack was soon killed, and even though this queen egg did in fact hatch, she soon lost her womb. Decidedly, she attached herself to a machine in the factory and began to create B-1 battle droids from her new mechanical womb, viewing the droids as her children. This sweet but disturbing story doesn't have a happy ending either, as in 0BBY, Darth Vader would return to Geonosis and forcefully take care of the factory and the final Geonosian queen. In the end, the mission to completely exterminate the Geonosians was a success, and none of their kind survived beyond this point. The estimated death toll was around 100 billion, making it the largest genocide in the Empire's history. These bugs are a figment of the past now, though I'm sure that there are a few clone troopers who don't mind that fact. So why exactly would Darth Sidious do this, and why exactly did he never like or trust the Geonosians in the first place? To Sidious, the Geonosians were always a means to an end, but in the end he realized that he could never subjugate them completely. As we've discussed before on the channel, the Sith never recruited from Geonosians because they were always loyal to their queen. The Geonosians, some of them at least, could be intelligent and wealthy, but in the end they only served their own goals and the goals of the queen. And no matter how much suffering Darth Sidious in the Empire would have imparted upon the Geonosians, they still would have only remained loyal to their queen. This, along with the fact that it was the Geonosians that held pieces in the Clone Wars Grand Plan, as well as in the Imperial Grand Plan, and had literally constructed the first stages of the Death Star, meant that Darth Sidious could not risk this. Not only did he always perceive the Geonosians as a means to an end, he also knew they were always going to be temporary. The species as a whole wasn't very much missed in the Star Wars galaxy, as hardly anyone even took note. In fact, commonly in the Star Wars galaxy, Geonosians were viewed as lesser beings, and many planets were quite terrified of Geonosian customs, as well as the fact that they had some of the largest and most dangerous resources in the entire galaxy. But now, my friends, what are your views on this horrific war crime? Of all of the terrible things Sidious has done, would you say that this is one of the worst? We are eager to get your thoughts on this, my friends, and be sure to comment down below if you think this loss was more tragic than that of the Jedi Order. Or do you believe that the Geonosians deserve to be exterminated? Just to put things in perspective, again, the Geonosian death toll was around 100 billion, where the Jedi Purge only killed around 10,000 Jedi. Until next time, my friends, may the Force be with you, and have a great day.